reading from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do everything for the glory of God. Avoid giving offense, whether to the Jews or Greeks or the church of God, just as I try to please everyone in every way, not seeking my own benefit, but that of the many, that they may be saved. Be imitators of me, as I am of Christ. The word of the Lord.
Our second reading for this Sunday comes from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians. We have been reflecting on how Jesus purifies us. In the first reading, the sorry state of people afflicted with leprosy. From the book of Leviticus, leprosy is not just a physical disease. It is considered by that time also as a spiritual, religious, social disease. Once afflicted with it, a person suffers the isolation that you do not want to wish on anybody. An isolation from the holy people Israel, for fear that through you, the rest of the people might become impure, unclean. So, it is not just, in a way, discrimination. There's also a way of preserving the integrity, the purity of the community. For in their mindset, the purity, the holiness of the community must be preserved. And if someone will afflict it with impurity, then that someone must sacrifice, must suffer the pains of being isolated for the sake of the community. But it does not in any way negate the suffering of people with leprosy. How do we deal with them? How will the purifying love of Jesus reach the impure, the unclean? In the second reading, St. Paul, again describing his apostolic mission, his missionary endeavor, tells us, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Wow! If we want to help those who are in the margins, those who are considered impure by society, St. Paul tells us Jesus is the answer. Imitate Jesus. And we turn to St. Paul, who claims he has imitated Jesus. How do you deal with people? During that time, it was not only a person with leprosy that was considered impure. Even the group of people called the Gentiles, the pagans, were also quite impure, unclean. There were so many classifications of impure people, but one such group is the Gentile group, those who do not belong to the chosen people. But St. Paul, bearing only missionary zeal and bearing only one motivation, for the glory of God, doing everything for the glory of God, he tells us he will reach out to the Jews and the Gentiles. Remember the great controversy that Paul and the early church had to face. Some Judaizers were claiming that it is not proper for Christians to be associated with the Gentiles. It's not proper for Christians to assimilate some of the Gentile ways. So they were saying, if you want to be a good Christian, you should be pure the way the Jews are, the chosen people of God. But St. Paul defended this approach, that the glory of God and the plan of God for salvation is meant for all. So, he imitates Jesus. Remember the life of Jesus. The life of Jesus is peopled with non-Jewish men and women. He made them feel that they're also children of God. What the world considers impure, in the loving design of salvation of God, they have a place. And so St. Paul tells us that he would go to the Jews and the Gentiles and win them for God in Jesus Christ. And also, he will not do anything to scandalize them, to drive them away. This is what he learned from Jesus. Purification by going out to the impure. Wow, huh? Some people will say, oh no, that's dangerous. If you go to the impure, you will be contaminated. But here is a different approach. You go to the Gentiles. And Jesus, as the model, had urged St. Paul in his missionary journeys, go to the Gentiles and share with them the cleansing, the purifying love of our Savior, Jesus Christ.